should you start a podcast? Especially if you're a business owner, you have probably had the thought, I should start a podcast. So the question is, should you actually start one? The difference is between like if you should start one or not. The first thing I always point to is, what is your objective for starting the podcast? I've talked to people, they come to me and they say, I want to start a podcast, Josh. And I say, that's great. Why do you want to start it? And they just say, well, I just want to do it as a passion project, or I feel like I've always wanted to do one. And I stop them right there. The reason is because you got to remember, when it comes to podcasting, it takes commitment for time and for money as well. Well, should I start one because it's a red ocean, because there's so many podcasts out there? And again, I always go back to the question of why you're starting it. If you are a business owner, primarily I work with business owners. Well, not primarily, 100% I work with business owners. But even if you are somebody that maybe you want to start it, you don't own a business, maybe you just have an interest in something. Maybe you want to start a podcast on music, or you want to start a podcast reviewing sneakers or whatever it is. The question would always be why, because you are going to have a commitment. And when it comes to the podcast game, doing it for a long period of time is highly important. Typically, when I enter a podcast agreement with a client, I tell them, have no expectations until we get at least 50 episodes in. Until you hit 50 episodes, you have no shot of having any kind of big traction and success on your podcast. Now, so if you're a business owner and you're wanting to start a podcast, of course, the objective is going to be to generate leads, to generate connections, to generate an audience. It's not going to be a thing of like social media. We're going to have thousands of subscribers on a weekly basis that are going to come to you and watch your videos and that sort of thing. So, subscribers on podcasts, it can be kind of difficult to generate those if you don't do it correctly. But the most important thing is executing the fundamentals, which we'll do another episode on my YouTube channel of the fundamentals of creating a podcast and making sure it goes out correctly. But as long as you're executing the fundamentals, you're staying consistent with it, and you're putting the proper volume out there, then generally speaking, you will weed yourself out if you do it for a year or 50 plus episodes at a time. Because what happens is, you don't know how many people I know personally, and I don't know personally, that have started a podcast. They got 5 to 10 episodes deep. They realize the commitment level that it takes, the time that it takes, and then they decide, I don't really want to do this. It's not generating ROI. But guys, that's not the podcast path. That's not what happens with podcasting. Yes, you can make money in podcasting. Yes, you can generate leads in podcasting, but it takes time to get to that destination. So the number one thing I would point to is, does your audience listen to podcasts? If your audience does listen to podcasts, then, and it makes sense for your business, and it's something where you can use it as a platform or a medium in order to be able to get good content in front of your audience and generate leads, then yes, start the podcast. And that's where you're going to go from there. Another thing I like to really leverage podcasts for is to get high-level connections on my podcast as a guest. I want to be able to build relationships. You don't know how many relationships I've been able to build. And ultimately working with clients or bringing somebody in to have some sort of an opportunity with them that I've generated just by asking somebody to be a guest on my show, or vice versa, me making an appearance on their show. That's one of the best utilizations for a podcast. I work with real estate investors on their social media, podcasts, and YouTube. So I'll intentionally get people that I personally don't know, but I know have a good reputation on my podcast, and I'll talk to them on that podcast about working with me or potentially being able to partner in some way. And there's been a lot of really, really great opportunities that have come out of that. It's no different than with a book. If you're an author and you're writing a book, or maybe you have a business and you're like, should I write a book for this? The question I would first start off with is, does my audience read books? Because there are audiences that don't read books. And it's important to understand your audience, Marketing 101, better than they know themselves. I've even written books just on podcast episodes, where if you actually look for my book, the REI Marketing book, that book is literally a combination of about 50 episodes that we transcribed and then rewrote some of the transcriptions and put it into a book. And I sold it as a free plus shipping offer and generated a lot of relationships and leads with that source. So there's a lot of advantages to a podcast. Really, if you're watching this video, chances are you're on the fence. You're thinking like, should I start one? Should I not start one? And it's simple. If your audience consumes podcasts, you have the time for it, and it makes sense for your business to start a podcast in order to be able to generate leads, then I would start a podcast. There's a lot of benefits to it. And once again, as long as you're executing the structure and the strategies correctly from the start and staying consistent with it, then it will generate results for you. The biggest, thing that pushes people to not do a podcast is this is a red ocean. There's way too many out there. Here's the thing. There's a reason there's way too many out there. It's because there's a massive audience of people that listen to podcasts. There is an audience for it. And the way that you stick out is by just staying consistent with it over time and putting out really, really good content and focusing on the quality. There are more people I know that have started a podcast and quit somewhere in there, and as opposed to people that have started a podcast and are still doing it 2 to 3 years later. And it's just because they know that the consistency does work. When it comes to organic podcasting, it does work. So hopefully that helps somebody, gave some direction. If you have any questions, you can also leave comments down below in the video. I do respond to every single comment personally. I don't have somebody else doing it. I do it personally. So leave a comment down below if you have any further questions about starting a podcast. But thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with somebody that you know that might potentially need it. Catch you on the next one. See ya.